Greetings, people of the internet. Today, we shall punch like we had never punched before. Isn't that quite right, Susan?
Yes, my lord.
Yes, indeed. Now, setting this aside, people are often surprised when I say that Atlas is probably my favorite frame in the game. And it's rather surprising considering my icon, or the banner, or my glyph. It started off as a bit of a joke actually. For fun, many years ago, I would just run around in Conclave and punch sweat lords in the face, but I actually ended up really liking Atlas because of it. So I was very excited to see that they made fisticuffs their own weapons that you can mod instead of using a stat stick. So today, we're finally going to check it out and give it a shot.
It appears that you have lost. How very unfortunate.
I've refined the setup over many years. I've added things like Brief Respite, but it's essentially just like Rubble Heap and Path of Statues with like Nullifier and Augmented and a bunch of other stuff. It's kind of a quality build, and I really like the way it works. So if we're gonna tweak it, it's only gonna be here and there. I don't think we're gonna change this too much. Wowee, what a time to be alive. Look at this, a Landslide Fists Prime with its own stance and all that. It's kind of nice that it has 2 V polarities, that's lovely. So the thing is, right, Landslide can hit really hard, and I cannot see a scenario where melee influence isn't gonna be absolutely broken. Like, none of these will come even close. Like, yeah, this is going to be stupid. The setup should be really straightforward, so let's get Bright Pressure Point, Blood Rush, Galvanized Steel, anything else? Yes, Galvanized Elementalist, of course. Definitely want Weeping Wounds. The status is a little bit low, it's only 15%. Voltaic Strike. There we go, that's pretty simple. Bring it on, fiends, I shall punch you like you've never been punched. Yeah, that's pretty much what I expected. Yeah, as I've said, like, there's no way this is not gonna be absolutely idiotically strong. This is just stupid. Yeah. Alrighty, let's punch some fools in the face! Way! One thing I have noticed right off the bat is that the Path of Statues augment is probably not very good anymore, because like the second I punch something, the entire room explodes, so the petrification trail isn't doing an awful lot. Now, I'm fully aware that this is not the most optimal Atlas build, right? You can do ridiculous amounts of damage, like far more than this, if you just stack a ton of strength and stuff, but this build, more than a lot of my other builds, is specifically made just to have as much fun with as possible. Do not confuse that with it being bad though, the build is very good. It's functionally immortal, and it still does more damage than most guns. Oh, what the clum! There were like 3 red crits in there that did over 1 million damage. Yeah, one thing that has to change unfortunately is that we can't rely on Path of Statues anymore because Influence just kills things way too fast in too large of an area. So we're gonna have to use Petrifying Gaze, which, I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world. We are quite literally suffering from success over here. Sit down, rat. So far, I think the fist setup is fine. I don't think we need to change that, but I think we can tweak the actual Atlas setup a little bit, you know, replace Path of Statues with something else, and maybe, you know, shuffle some things around a little bit. I am not sure what this augment does anymore, so let's go try it. So this would theoretically work. The unfortunate thing here is that you can't jump while you're a rumbler, so that's a no. I thought maybe we could get more strength, but I really don't think we need more strength. Like, we have all the damage in the world. Yeah, I do like the idea of Gladiator Resolve, specifically for the set bonus. So we get more crit. I mean, I'm already running Aegis for the exact reason, so this way we can actually get a 2-piece set bonus, and we get a little bit of health on top. An alternative here would actually be rolling guard for when you have nothing to punch, because you're only invulnerable when you're like mid-landslide. So if there is nothing for you to target, you become very vulnerable, and that's how you die on this build. So you could mitigate that with the rolling guard. One thing I'm curious about is like, how does this interact with the mods you have on your weapon? Because if we go to the Jetki tag, when we put on all 3 of these gladiator mods, they should get combined with the ones we have on our frame and give us even more crit. Right? So we can still kind of stat stick. An even better question actually is, what happens if I were to put melee influence here as well? Do we get like 2 20% chances to trigger it, or do we only activate 1? Oh man, this is such tremendous fun. I mean, even just the idea of this is very amusing to me. Like, you have access to all the deadly instruments you can think of. You have them at your disposal, yet you still choose to just punch them in the face. I genuinely don't think I can make this build any better for myself. Like, this is perfect for what I want to do with it. That's something you should definitely bear in mind when you're looking for builds, by the way. Not just for frames, but for weapons and even pets. Like, a build might be good, but it might not suit you. And that's fine. I am very certain that there are people that will absolutely hate the hell out of this build. And that's fine, as long as they're not like, oh, this is a bad build, because it's objectively not. Alright, I think it's time to wrap it up. So, here's the final frame build, and I did tweak it a little bit because I've realized something after I finished recording. For the aura, we have Brief Respite. This converts a little bit of the energy you use for Landslide into shield. This is here to bolster our shield gating capabilities. Then optionally in the Exiles you can run Cunning Drift for a little bit of extra range, but most of our range comes from Archon Stretch, because if you put electricity on your Landslide, you can actually trigger the energy generation from Archon Stretch. This is the thing I realized after I finished recording, and it makes the build even better because you will most definitely never run out of energy now. Following that, we have Fleeting Expertise for a ton of efficiency, which makes our abilities, mainly Ore Gaze, a lot cheaper because our Landslide's actually going to be free thanks to Rubble Heap. Then we have Gladiator Aegis and Resolve, mainly for the set bonus, which provides a Blood Rush-like effect, but they also provide a nice chunk of health and armor for us. Next on the menu we have Primed Continuity, which is kind of a flex slot nowadays. We mainly used to run it because of Path of Statues, but we don't run that anymore, so if you want to, you can replace it with something else. Then we have Intensify for a nice chunk of strength, a Rubble Heap, which is an absolutely ridiculous augment because it makes it so that once you're above 1400 rubble, which is the special resource that Atlas uses, your Landslide is free, does double damage, and it charges enemies twice as fast. We used to sustain this passively with the Path of Statues augment, but now thanks to Influence, it doesn't really do much, so we're gonna have to use Ore Gaze to petrify the enemies to then break them and collect the rubble. And finally we have Catalyzing Shields, which gives us old school shield gating. This works really well with this setup because you're only vulnerable in between landslides. You are unkillable when you're landsliding. So with Catalyzing Shields, when you get hit, you would trigger a shield gate and you have more than enough time to find your next target. Now onto the actual fists, and there's honestly not much to say here. It's just a melee influence setup, so we run melee influence as our arcane, Blood Rush and Galvanized Steel for crit, Weeping Wounds for status, Galvanized Elementalist for status damage and status chant, Voltaic Strike for the electricity to trigger influence, Primed Pressure Point for melee damage, and then Vicious Frost and Volcanic Edge for blast. This is by far my favorite, let's just call it a caster. It's basically the I cast fist meme. It's fun, simple, and effective. I've been playing around with this kind of a build for a very long time, so I really have it dialed in for maximum enjoyment. The build is virtually immortal, it does ridiculous, disgusting damage, and it never runs out of energy. So yes, of course I'm gonna recommend you give it a shot. It's my favorite caster setup in the game. It's really fun. Trust me. And as always guys, I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Then, I would also like to extend a special thank you to all the channel members. Thank you very much guys, I really appreciate your support. It means a lot to me. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.